Right, because you're all coming from a similar ethical background, right? You all want more American-made products, more American jobs, more opportunities for people here at home, rather than just the fast fashion that you get from manufacturing overseas.
Absolutely, absolutely. That word fast fashion, you can get it fast. And like fast food, you can get something fast and it serves a purpose. But if you pull back the cover a little bit, is this the best thing for me, right? What am I consuming or what am I wearing? And how was that all put together? And is this allowing me to live my best life? Is this allowing me to support my community and things like that?
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 156 features Army veteran Patrick Mate, the founder of Patriot Jean Co., an American-made, grown, and sewn denim company. Welcome. This is Veteran Made. Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Good afternoon from the great state of Ohio. For me, good morning from the great state of Arizona. Patrick Mate, welcome to Veteran Made.
Thank you very much, Kerry. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm stoked to have you. Stoked to reopen a conversation that I've had over the years on the podcast about American manufacturing and clean supply chain and job creation and all of those really important things that can get muddied as we have the national conversation that we're having right now across the board. So it's really good to dive in with somebody who is in it and doing it and doing it from a place of interest and opportunity and the ethical approach. So Patrick, please tell us who you are, where and when you served, and then we'll jump into the meat.
Yeah, absolutely. So Patrick Mate, I currently live in southern Arizona. Like Kerry, I was actually born and raised in Ohio. So go Buckeyes.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I went to school via an ROTC scholarship and studied computer science and did everything I could to avoid the active duty. And I wanted to go reserve because I had plans of becoming a computer programmer. But the Army had different plans for me, and it turned out to be the best decision for my life. And I served 5.5 years, predominantly in the 101st, but a couple of other schooling, training, and deployment locations as well. And so 5.5 years in active duty Army, and got out and was a defense and aerospace contractor for nearly 2 decades. And when COVID hit, I was asked to work from home and realized I didn't need to wear a pair of suit pants with a sport coat on Zooms. So I went searching for a great pair of American-made denim jeans, and that's when I ran into an issue, and that began, that's kind of the genesis story for Patriot Jean Co.
Gotta love big Army or big branch, right? Whatever branch you served in, they're gonna put you where they need you. But it often leads to other opportunities that you otherwise may not have had. Let's chat about that genesis. I want to ask like what might seem like an obvious question up front, but at that time, why were you looking for American made denim?
Well, I think to me, I wanted a good pair of classic American made jeans. And, it over the last 10 or 15 years, I wouldn't buy that many pairs of jeans, but it seemed like more and more were being made overseas and more were being made with almost like spandex yoga pants. And I wanted a good pair of classic American made denim. And so I thought, yeah, let me just go out and get a few pairs, and really struggled finding something that I liked and that were up to my quality levels. And, did some research and found out, boy, this is a big, a big challenge, because although 450 million pairs of jeans are sold in the United States every year, less than 3%, and some people say the number is about 1% of jeans are actually manufactured here. So I started digging in, and what was encouraging is that because there were jeans that were made in America, it gave me kind of confidence that it can be done. I just needed to figure out a way to do it.
How quickly did you move from there aren't as many available as I would like to have to choose from to I'm going to build a company that manufactures American made denim?
Pretty quickly, actually. What I tried a couple of pairs of jeans from smaller brands in the United States, and never found something that I truly enjoyed wearing. And so I thought, well, this seems like a good time to put my hand to the plow and do some research. And as I dug in, I started to investigate, is there a supply chain that I could piece together to do this? Are there skilled laborers in the field that could assist me as I put these together? And how would I go about doing this? And so within just a few weeks, I had put together, I don't know if you'd call it a business plan, but kind of an overview of how I would do it. And yeah, I'm not going to show that to you because I was 90% wrong, but it was a step in the right direction. And so when I did that, I reached out to a friend who assists a lot with veteran entrepreneurs, and said, hey, Dean Bunchu was his name. And we had served our time in college together in Army ROTC. And now he was prominent in helping veteran entrepreneurs. And of course, he took my phone call, and, I wanted to give him the whole spiel of here's how I'm going to do it. After about 10 minutes, he says, stop, Patrick. He says, go do it. Go do it. Right. You're waiting on perfection. You're waiting on to keep grinding away on finding the plan. Go do it. If you're going to do it, do it. And I wholeheartedly support it. And, I've had to reinvent myself numerous times over the last 10 years as I became an entrepreneur. He says, you'll figure it out. He said, just go. And so that was the best piece of advice I received in the beginning, is that, there's no perfect timing to do it. But if you've got a good idea and you believe in it, and a lot of hard work and planning for capital and all of that, go do it. Because America was built on the risk takers, the pioneers, the patriots. And so that was very helpful early on. And he was able to connect me with somebody in the American made apparel industry who had went to West Point and eventually started his own company, a brand called Authentically American, and Dean Wegner. And I had several conversations with him, and, Dean was very encouraging and connected me with some other people. And so that really, then I started solidifying, okay, I'm going to do this, right? Now I need to get smart.
Yeah, so many of us get caught in the idea stage and making the idea perfect.
Hmm.
Uh, and ideas are never perfect, right? We have to get as quickly as we can to the executional stage because the executions are going to be imperfect and
Right.
imperfectly perfect along the way, right? Perfectly imperfect rather. Um, and getting that stage of failing early,
Yep.
failing quickly,
Yes.
so that you can move toward an actual, item in this case, right? Like not an idea for a product, but an actual product. And that I think tends to be the hardest part, right? Like we want to go to market with the perfect thing, but you can't. You have to go to market with what you have,
Yep.
and then work through the kinks from there. Um, that
That's
Go ahead.
yeah, that's a great point. I think the very famous philosopher by the name of Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? And so those words were pretty pathetic for me. I had a good plan, but I had to react because as soon as it was similar to my army days. As soon as we came in on the helicopters and put our boots on the ground, regardless of the perfect plan we had, right? Number one, the enemy gets a vote. The terrain is not always shaped like you want, and you've got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And so, um, quickly learned. And going back to my engineering and program management days in aerospace and defense, one of the things that I always led with and always encouraged our teams was fail fast, right? Fail fast, get to failure quickly. As we were developing new products or trying to transition into production, because those became milestone learning points where we could learn and iterate the design or iterate the process that we needed to have a quality producible product. And to me, that was the same thing I was doing, just in a completely different industry. And so, trust me, I failed a number of times, in trying to get this going. But I failed fast and I got back up and I learned.
Yeah, it's also what's interesting. So many entrepreneurs choose um, crowded industries, competitive industries, ones where you're going to be competing with a lot of other ventures, a lot of other companies, a lot of other entities that are developing similar products and going to compete with them. What's interesting about you and what you discovered early was that there aren't a lot of American what is it American grown, sewn, and manufactured apparel, in this case denim, right? There's only a few of you out there, and so it it while it might feel like it's a competitive space, especially because there are a couple of other veteran entrepreneurs that are doing the same thing, it actually makes for a better opportunity for you because you're actually competing with less people, and less of a share of the overall market, which, and I know we'll get into this, allows for you all to use some of the same vendors and partners, right, for the manufacturing tools that you need uh, to get the product to market.
Absolutely. And the thing that I found out in this industry, particularly within denim jeans, is I've talked to a number of other founders and owners of American produced denim jeans, and everyone is so helpful, right? What can I do to help you? What do you need? Here's some things I've learned along the way, where when I was in private industry in defense and aerospace, it was very competitive. I worked for Raytheon, and if somebody from Lockheed would have tried, to offer the same advice, I'd tell them where to stick it, right? We're going to beat you. And it was very competitive environment. But where we're operating now is that because American made apparel is so rare that honestly a rising tide lifts all boats. In other words, we're using some of the same suppliers, and if we build up a strong, resilient supply base amongst us, right, that'll allow us all to have better success, right? And if one achieves good publicity and good marketing, that really helps us all.
Right, because you're all coming from a similar ethical background, right? You all want more American-made products, more American jobs, more opportunities for for people here at home, rather than just the fast fashion that that you get from manufacturing overseas.
Absolutely, absolutely. That word fast fashion, you can get it fast, and like fast food, you can get something fast and it serves a purpose. But if you pull back the cover a little bit, is this the best thing for me? Right? What am I consuming or what am I wearing? And how was that all put together? Right? And is this allowing me to live my best life? Is this allowing me to, support my community and things like that?
Yeah, it's one of the dangers of our culture. The older I get, the more I sound like my dad, right? Where you're just like,
Right?
one of the problems with our culture today, right? But one of the big problems with our culture today, so consumer driven and consumer centric, is just having all of this stuff and getting it quickly and getting it kind of whenever we want and essentially getting whatever we want. And in many ways it looks good, right? Because prices drop, right? Like when I was a kid, there were certain big things that were just a lot more expensive than they are now.
Right.
Right. And so my kids feel like they can just get stuff whenever they want. When in reality, we need to be more conscious about, like you said, what we consume, right? What we put in our bodies, and then what we wear, what we put on our bodies. And we need to understand, why are we putting those things in and on our bodies, and who are we supporting? Both on the job front, as well as on the negative front, because you look at supporting overseas manufacturers who do not have the same labor practices that we have in this country. And this country fought over that for a long, long period of time, in the factories and in Congress and all these other places. And we fought for those things for a reason, because we know that, there are fair practices that we believe in as a country, that everybody should be treated, well. And a lot of the things that we consume, both in and on our bodies, and the things that we use, are made by people that aren't treated the way that we would want to be treated.
100%, 100%. I like to say this is the ATM society that we live in right now. Right? You want to go push a button and boom, I get whatever I want, right? And even with these, buy now, pay later, I can get the pizza right now and I don't have to pay till next month, right? This is, we're digging ourselves further in a hole. And we've done that over the last few decades with apparel. And if you look at even the farming practices from the three largest producers of cotton, India, United States, and China, there is huge differences in terms of quality, in terms of the labor used, in terms of ethical practices, including environmental standards that you look at just from the cotton, right? And then you get into the mills and the manufacturing facilities, and there are market differences between how we as a brand do things and how other brands do things for far cheaper. But what we do know is that for every manufacturing job that we can help create in the United States, there's roughly an additional 2 other jobs that are created in industries like real estate, first responders, teachers and educators, industries like that, where it really that money value reciprocates right back into the local community.
Right. It's more, yeah. Yeah. It's so layered, right? And it compounds, right? This idea, like you hear it in the news, right? Like American made, or bringing jobs from overseas back to this country. It's like the economy is not just it's not just capitalistic in that it is the exchange of goods and services for capital, for cash, for money, for credit, for whatever. It is more of a moral system, right? That through your purchasing power and through the decisions that you make in your home and individually for yourself, you're doing more than just buying an American made piece of denim. You're actually helping the communities in this country operate and be successful not just in that industry, but across the entire community.
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest pushback that we get with that is, the price to the consumers, right? But I would, try to help educate consumers is that if you look back to Levi Strauss and, the original denim jeans, these were constructed as coveralls for miners and blue collar jobs, in which they would literally wear these over their underwear, and they'd wear them day after day after day. One of those pairs of jeans, similar costs from then to today, would cost around $300 for a pair of jeans. And these were people that were living, very meager existences, or very meager incomes. But this was an investment. Similarly, and we've looked at, other popular brands that manufacture overseas, and we've deconstructed their denim jeans. Ours jeans are rugged, they're reliable. We almost consider it an investment that you can go buy the fast fashion 2 or 3 pairs of jeans, or you can buy one of ours and it's going to last. Right. And so there's that benefit also of, understanding, how the cotton is put together, how it's ring spun, how there's regulations, in terms of quality control and all of those processes in place that definitely affect the end product that the customer gets.
Yeah. Talk to me about the relationships that you've built in the industry with these other brands that are, and the entrepreneurs that lead these brands that are in this space, and you all are trying to accomplish similar things, right? Both, acutely for yourselves, right, to grow a brand and generate revenue and build a business that is successful, but then also bringing all these other cultural and societal components into play. What are those relationships like, right? There's some industries that are really competitive, like we talked about earlier, and people don't want to help other people. They don't want to provide resources for other people because they're a competitor. But what's it like for you with some of these other entrepreneurs in terms of the relationship that you've built?
Well, Kerry, that's a great question. And I would say I did something that I wouldn't normally recommend. Is I dove into an industry of which I had zero knowledge, zero relationships. It was completely different than what I had done as far as the actual products being produced. So one of the very first things I did was I went out to North Carolina, which is the heart of historically American-made denim, between the cotton and the mills and everything else that's out there. And I was able to take a week-long intensive on denim jeans. And through that first initial class of educating myself, I met, industry executives and leaders from other companies that were there. And so that really started the process of developing some of these relationships. And, I would make phone calls time after time of trying to reach out to people. And of course, when I'm Patrick May, Patriot Jean Coat, one person, nobody's ever heard of us, and you get a voicemail or an email from me, right? It's not going to be high priority for you to return it. And so there would be times when I would have to leave voicemails every day for about 3 straight weeks before I would stop and say, okay, I'm going to have to try another inroad here. So it took a relentless pursuit of relationships to build, whether that was within the supply chain or whether that was with other entrepreneurs as well. But one thing that I found that was encouraging is that sometimes it wasn't always the first layer effects. Sometimes it was the second and third layer effects. For instance, right, Dean Wagner, would introduce me to somebody, and that somebody would introduce me to somebody, and that somebody would introduce me to somebody. And sometimes third and fourth layers down, all of a sudden I have a connection that I really needed or really helped, escalate an issue or further my progress on where I was trying to go. So I would say don't discount the value of getting to know somebody, understanding where there are synergies that you could help each other, and being introduced to people that you may not think would be in your sphere of influence at any time. Because eventually you start to build up this connectivity, and that's where it becomes very powerful, because not only now can I reach out to somebody, hey, do you know somebody over there? But people can reach out to me and say, hey, I can say, hey, let me introduce you to somebody over here that may be able to answer the question or help you with that particular issue. So I would say, particularly within the veteran community, there has been just so much support and so much encouragement, whether that's in the marketing space, whether that's showing up on podcasts with great Americans like you, or whether that's in actual supply chain and production. And when we're able to tell our story, and a veteran hears it, that definitely resonates with what we're doing, and so we're being now pulled in new directions of, hey, we'd like you to speak to the veterans at our company. We'd like you to come. I've got an event coming this Veterans Day for a Fortune 500 company, of which I'm going to go and tell my story and how the veteran skills and mindset can translate to commercial success as well. So it's been eye-opening, and the key to it has been building those relationships.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, entrepreneurship is a lonely endeavor, and especially when you get into an industry like you said, where you know nothing. I would imagine there's an element of that is both really exciting and really terrifying at the same time. So, what are some of the tools that you've used personally, whether they're ones that you've pulled from your experience in the military or just personal tools and skills that you've brought to bear to work through that loneliness and to work through that? I mean, man, like as you were saying, leaving a voicemail daily for 3 weeks, like I would imagine that just gets very frustrating. But what do you tell yourself, and what do you do to push through the loneliness that comes along with the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, that's that really hits home, because as a company of one, and we subcontract out all of our work, and we work with partners and suppliers to pull it all and bring it all together at the end. Having to reinvent myself as, okay, now I need to be a supply chain expert. Now I need to be the CFO. Now I need to understand how to file taxes. Now I need to understand how to do accounting, or whatever it is. There are days where you're wearing so many different hats that it's like, boy, I wish I could just call on that one or two experts that I need, but you can't, right? So, wise man once told me, when you don't know what to do what you know to do. And to me, that means, what are those daily disciplines that I can do that become habits after 21 days or so, that become part of our culture or part of my personal character. For personally, right, I like to get up in the morning and run, several miles or work out, right? If I can't say that I'm a workout buff if I do it once or twice a week or a month, right? But if I have those daily habits, those daily disciplines, that when that alarm clock goes off at 4:30 or 5:30, I'm up, I go do it, right? Whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to do it, right? Eventually, right, I am going to see the results that I am looking for, right? And that is my firm belief. And I've got to stay focused on that, right? So professionally, those are the same things I'm doing. What are those daily disciplines, right? I am not a marketing guru. I am not a social media genius by any means, right? But what am I doing? I'm showing up every day. You're going to see some social media activity and posts and some content creation from me, right? That I'm developing those daily disciplines to develop a habit, to ultimately be our company culture of where we want to go, right? And so I may not see the results from lifting weights or running after a week or 2 weeks, right? But eventually I'm going to get those results, right? And that's the same daily grind that I'm going through for my business right now. I am literally chasing every sale right now on every pair of jeans, right? And I'm not selling, a $50,000 car. I'm selling $120 pairs of jeans, right? So I am literally, if somebody messages us, with a question, I am 100% committed, focused. I will be on a phone call. One customer, I was on multiple phone calls for over an hour and a half to sell one pair of jeans, right? But that's what we can do as a small brand that separates us, right? So I believe those small acts, those daily disciplines that develop habits, and eventually our company culture will bear fruit in time, right? And I've got to continue to believe that to show up every day and do what we're doing.
Yeah, and the more you do those things, the better you're going to get at them, and then you're going to scale to the spot where you don't have to be the one doing all of those things daily
Right.
yourself, right? You have that future to look forward to where you're like, I'm doing this right now. I'm doing this for days. I'm doing this for months. Maybe I'm doing this for years, but eventually, right, it's going to pay off and get to a spot where I can offload this to somebody else to do. But then you will have developed some skills, and you'll know your customers. You'll know their desires, their wants. You'll know the things that speak to them, from a storytelling and marketing standpoint, better than some other CEO who is just sitting at the top, telling somebody else, some marketing strategist, to figure that out, right? Like, you're figuring that out from the ground up, and eventually you won't have to do it anymore, which will be satisfying, I'm sure, at some point.
Right. 100%. And that doesn't limit me from dreaming and
Right.
from planning, 5 and 10 years out. There's all kinds of things that I'm already starting to set the stage in. I'm working, with local cotton farmers in Arizona of how can we take not just the cotton from the Southeast, Texas to Florida, the Panhandle, Georgia, Carolina, all through there. But how can we use cotton from Arizona, right? And so in my early investigations, I found out actually the Arizona cotton might be a little bit stronger. It's not typically used in denim because I've got to ship it to the East Coast to get milled up. But then I've talked to the mill and they said, yeah, I think we can do this, right? So those are exciting things that we think we can do in the future, right? So it does not, the daily disciplines doesn't prevent me from trying to plan out where we should go. But I've got to be consistent on showing up every day.
Yeah, that's right. It's a great segue, because I was actually going to ask you what you believe the future of the industry is. And so let's talk a little bit about what exists in the Southeast and North Carolina, where it is now, how you and some of these other companies are working with them, and where you want to move it, and how you see that you can play a role in that.
Yeah, I think, number one, obviously we want to be successful as a brand, and we've got specific metrics that we're driving to. We may or may not achieve them, but like any goal, give me an azimuth, tell me which direction to go, and I'm down the road, right? I'm doing those daily things in order to get down the road, and so that's what we're working on now. But I think in the future, what would be really key is to increase the resilience of the supply chain. And I'll give you a perfect example on our first couple of production runs. We had trouble with one particular piece of trim of finding made in USA. And so I was calling around to all different places. Can you make custom? Can you do this? No. And finally, I was able to reach one company who said, okay, how about this? We may be able to ship some equipment back from an international location and stand up a line just for you. And I said, okay, what's the catch? Well, minimum order quantities are going to be about 100 times what your initial production runs are needed. I said, okay, let's do it, right? And so, but that's the types of things as an entrepreneur you need to be ready for, is, to pay those minimum order quantities if you're building something, or to pay to get your name out, and those types of, I'll say, hidden costs that isn't just in your recurring costs that you would typically project. So building, going forward, right? Building a resilient and robust supply chain that there are multiple options for everybody. Not just our brand, not just denim jeans, but apparel in general, right? Um, so we would have multiple people who can mill denim, multiple areas that we can harvest cotton from. We'd have multiple zipper manufacturers, multiple, rivets and buttons manufacturers, and things like that. That's where I think then some, other people, other entrepreneurs can come in to the field and not have to plow the same ground that I did, right? But we'll be able to take what we've been trying to do and take that even a step further and build ultimately better products in the end, because there's more variety, more options. What we want to do is support American companies and American jobs as well, right? Hopefully in the future we're able to vertically integrate a little bit and span out and spawn other companies, whether it's, labels and tags or, whatever it is. We want to be able to birth other companies as a part of this process. So, we're looking for other veterans down the road, entrepreneurs that can, have a heart for this type of thing and are willing to take a risk.
Yeah, there's an ideological component to this as well, right? Like there are, I think, probably a lot of customers in the space that want to buy American made, American grown, American sewn, vertically integrated, right? But there's also the nature of imperfection, like we talked about earlier, right? Like, yeah, we want to move towards a clean supply chain. We want to move towards an American supply chain. We want to bring jobs and opportunities back from overseas to this country, and not just the Southeast, but also the West and also the Midwest and all of these places. But this is going to take time, right? Mm-hmm. Which is going to require us to do some things imperfectly. There's another American-made apparel company that I had on the podcast a few years ago, Terra Arma. They're down in San Antonio. They make t-shirt not undergarments, but t-shirts to wear under BDUs and BDUs. I'm showing my age here. Blouses and all those things in service. And they started by manufacturing overseas because that's what they needed to do to get the company going, to build the product that they knew that they wanted to build for the community, the military community, with an eye towards fully cleaning up their supply chain and doing everything domestically. And that's where they're at now, right? But it took them starting somewhere else to get to where they are now. And that's the nature of a global economy. If we're going to make this change and move things back from overseas to to domestically, it's going to take some imperfect progress for us to get there, right?
Right. That I 100% agree with that. That's a good point. For us, our non-negotiable going in was everything had to be made in the USA, even down to the labels and tags. And, we could have compromised and and paid, 10% of what we're paying on number of different pieces of trim, if we wanted from China or else. But that was the one thing we said, okay, this is what we are putting our stake in the ground, is made in USA. And then, right, we've posted some of our production videos, and guess what? For probably 90% of the American apparel industry, the sewing machines are Jukies. Jukies aren't an American sewing machine. And so I said, oh, okay. So how far down this rabbit hole do we want to go, right? But that's burst some ideas. That's given me some insight. That's allowed me to open up conversations with others. Hey, could I put together a 100% made in America machinery, a factory to produce 100% made in America products, right? I don't have a 100% answer yet, but I'm pretty confident, right? And so that's kind of a hint and a glimpse into where I would see Patriot Jean Co. in the future, is getting involved into some of those discussions, because I think the more we support our local communities. Obviously, that's going to help all of us. But we can look to automate as much as we can and use AI and technologies as much as we can. Because I would much rather bring somebody on board that, is going to be an electrician or a maintainer of equipment than somebody to try to compete with the labor wages of a seamstress from overseas, right? And so those are some of the things we're thinking about, some of the investments we're going to be making in the future.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. Like the more work you do and the deeper you go, the more not just opportunities arise for yourself, but opportunities to bring more of all of this to bear, right? On what you're
Right.
like, you discovered something. You're like, man, that's a problem because my standards, my ethics are completely 100% American. Well, we're at a crossroads here. So how do I solve this problem? How do I step back for a second and look and say, all right, what are some opportunities? And you don't have to tell us what those ideas are because you're still, like you said, working through it and you're confident. But that is the idea, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's iteration, right? It's iteration, right? You get to that first learning point. I don't call it failure. Get to that first learning point and you say, okay, let me iterate on my idea a little bit. Let me chomp on that a little bit. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough right now, right? But just make constant progress. Constant progress is what we're after, right? And you draw some lines. These are my non-negotiables. These are my values. This is who we are as a company. But then you learn to iterate and improve on processes, products, and people.
Yeah. So what do you see, kind of high level 30,000 foot view, like what, obviously for your own business to be successful, the industry has to move in this direction. How confident are you in this American made movement? With all these, some are veteran owned, some are not veteran owned, right? There's a handful of these companies out in California that are
Right.
making apparel that's denim and just apparel that's all made in America. That are not in the veteran space, right? It's actually a cool thing. Like our community probably tends to be a little right of center, right? But like some of the more hippy dippy sort of like left of center cultural folks that are kind of culturally that way, like there's a real opportunity for integration and community here, right? As we like move the country forward in some of these ways that we can control. What do you see the future of the American made industry? Where is it right now? Where do you want it to go, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, that's a great question. And going back to your point of, you've got maybe environmentalists on the left and, pro-American jobs on the right. This is a great opportunity for those two to come together, right? And forge a path forward. It's interesting. So I talked about the genesis of Patriot Jean Co. And, during COVID, what happened, and looking for a good American made pair of jeans. The other thing that happened during COVID that hit not only the defense and aerospace industry, but I think across industries, was the realization that a long global supply chain, right, probably has some weak links. And we saw industry after industry, whether it's cars that were stopped on boats in other countries, right, or in the defense industry where we could not build certain products because we couldn't get a key part in, right? This was across industries, right? And so I think that was a real wake-up call across America, but particularly in the apparel industry of listen, right? If something happens on the global level, we've got to be able to respond and deliver to the American consumers what is needed. And I would even say, push it one step further, there's some national security implications of not being able to do certain things within your own borders of your own country, right? And, whether that's making uniforms and making clothing and apparel for industry workers even, to making complex technology and machinery and equipment for the military. So, I think I wouldn't say we have to go 100%, but I think, there has to be a better balance where we can do those things, and we have a robust supply chain within the United States that can take things from raw materials to finished product for our own national security purposes, right? Because who's to say there won't be another pandemic, or who's to say the political landscape and issues of the day might relegate one certain supplier from a country to not being able to use them, right? And I think we've got to develop those not just habits from the consumer side, but we've got to develop those resources from the production side as well. And I think this is a great opportunity. The stage is set with COVID and global supply chain and awareness, that I think it's a unique opportunity for us to say, listen, we can do this better environmentally. We can do this better by our employees. We can do this better for national security. For all of those reasons, we can do this. And so what I'm hoping is that Patriot Gene Co. can help lead some of these conversations and lead some of these innovations that are going on, that we can develop a robust supply chain across industries where we can be self-sufficient.
Yeah, we have a decision to make as a culture to decide what kind of country we want to be, and that includes everyone. That doesn't just include the left, and it doesn't just include the right. It includes everyone. It doesn't just include the brands and the manufacturers. It includes the consumers, right? I think one thing, putting it through the veteran lens and the military lens, is we tend to think that when we transition out of the military, we become a civilian. You don't become a civilian, you become a citizen, right? And citizens make decisions, and the decisions that citizens make impact the country at large. Yes, that's as big as, voting for who the next president is going to be, but it's also as small as what's the food you're putting on your table and in your body, what's the clothes that you're putting on yourself and your children. What are you consuming? Why are you consuming it? How much of it are you consuming? These are all decisions that citizens make daily. And if we continue to just make them blindly, inadvertently, right, without intention, then we're all going to have these problems if the next pandemic is worse, if the next global crisis is worse. And we all need to, it sounds cheeky, but we really do all need to come together and make some very important decisions in our own lives individually, and then for our families, and then to our communities, and then to our states, and then to our country, right? And if we're not thinking about these things through shared lenses, there might be some differences, right, on either side of some things, but we've already talked about here, the environmentalists on the left and the, conservationists on the right, can come together and say, hey, this is a problem that we can solve together. And this is industry that we can build, right? It's not just problem solving and preventing bad things, but it's creating good things that we can bring back to this country, instead of just saying, well, that's just the way the global economy is now, so I guess I'm just going to exist here.
Right. That I one word, from all of that'll pull on is intention. And Carrie, you hit it spot on. It's living out with intention. Who do we want to be as a person, as a family, as a country, right? Who do I want to be, right? And so when we live with intentions, then the choices become natural. And I'll give you an example. I have a 3-year-old son, right? And so sometimes he gets hungry, as kids do, right? So I ask him, what do you want? What do you want to eat? What do you want for a snack? He'll say, I want some carrots. I want some blackberries. I want an apple. I want, some cucumbers. What 3-year-old? Why is he asking?
How did you want those things?
Why is he asking for those things? It's because I live with intention, right? Yeah. Those are the things that I'm eating. Those are the things that we have in the house. We don't have the, Oreos and Teddy Grahams and all those other things. We live with intention. And so when he's hungry, he's developed that decision-making process that anything you want to eat in the house, son, go for it, right? because we're living with intention, right? And I think that same methodology, that living with intention, applies to other areas, right? Because right now it is so easy. Let me just add something to my Amazon cart real quick, and boom, it'll be here tomorrow, free shipping, right? And I get the Amazon deal of the day or whatever it is, right?
Add something to your cart and get it overnight, right?
Get it overnight or 3 hours later, right?
Yeah.
And I can pay for it next month,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of those things, because that's so convenient. But convenience comes at a cost, right? Convenience comes at a cost, right? And for Patriot Gene Co., we are being intentional about how we structured the company and the products we are producing, right? We are teamed with American farmers and American factories and American families. We are literally restarting production lines and bringing jobs back to America, because we know that dollars spent in America are going to reciprocate and benefit all of us, right? And so we are trying to live that out intentionally. And, for everyone else out there, I would ask you, challenge yourself. What are some of those intentionalities that you can take a look at, right? PatriotGeneCo.com, great place to start, PatriotGeneCo.com.
Yeah, heck of a way to end. I was just going to ask you where we can find you. But yeah, where can we find your website, the jeans? Where can we find you on social? Where can folks go to drive some traffic for you?
Yeah, the website is PatriotGeneCo.com or at PatriotGeneCo across all social media, Twitter or X and the Meta platforms, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Love for you to join the conversation of some of the things we're talking about. Would love for you to check out our website, and would love for you to live intentionally and invest in yourself and get a pair of American-made denim jeans that were brought to you by American farmers, American factories, and American families. Live with intentionality. I promise you, they'll be the best darn pair of jeans you've ever had in your life. You'll feel good, you'll look good, and you're supporting a veteran. And by that, I'm saying, this entrepreneur journey is hard. It is very hard, right? It is something, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It is an investment. It is bootstrapped. It is something that I saved a long time in order to do. And I'm pulling no money from the company right at this time. Hopefully someday in the future, I can actually have a salary. But right now I'm just working to provide consumers with the absolute best product that I can.
I love it. Patrick, to end each episode of the podcast, I ask an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. But Patrick, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Yeah, what's on my heart and what's on my mind is, I would just ask everybody, whether you're a veteran or not, to be a patriot. And what do I mean by that is I like to use 3 words to define a patriot, and that's live with purpose, discipline, and resilience. And living with purpose, having that intention, knowing where you're going, discipline, having those daily disciplines to be who you say you are, right? And living with resilience. Failure's going to come. Failure's going to happen. Fail fast, learn from it, get back up. Because the measure of a man isn't how many times you get knocked back down, but how many times you rise back up.
That's it. Well said. Patrick, appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. Appreciate the denim. We'll all go check it out. We'll link it out. This is going live next week, so I will collaborate with you on all the Meta platforms and put it up on X and LinkedIn and all that good stuff, and we'll share this far and wide. Appreciate you, brother.
Kerry, thank you so much for what you're doing for the veteran community, and thank you for helping us get the word out there.
Cheers, brother.
Yeah.